Chapter 291 continues advancement. Do you know why we, weak individuals, can come here in the abyss? Because there are more outposts in the abyss and a lack of manpower? One of them guessed.
That's right.
In the past, there were too few outposts, so it would have been a waste of space to have us here. But now, because there are over 100,000 additional outposts, there is a lack of manpower. These outposts can't gather resources themselves. Even with all kinds of puppets and automated arrays, manpower is still needed. Having these Tier 6 individuals who had nothing to do in the Ethereum realm work here is perfect. Don't tell me that your guild leader is the one responsible for the 100,000 additional outposts? Although they had heard their bragging about their guild leader earlier, they chose to ignore it. After all, no matter how great an individual is it greater than those peak apex sovereigns? Will it be stronger than Fialon, the Dean of Darkness, Riadius, the God of Gods, or Alabaster, the Overlord of Beasts? There is even Malgrin, the strongest being born in the history of the Ethereum realm. Even these great people can't do anything to change the status quo in the abyss. So how can a rising supernova that still hadn't reached its peak have such strength? Ahihi, that's right, the Shadowhunter Guild member couldn't help but raise their chest proudly. My guild leader has connections to a top-dimensional merchant, making all this possible. Dimensional merchant? Your guild leader has a connection with other dimensions? They muttered in shock at the news. So far, they have only seen outside dimensions in virtual worlds or books. Hearing that someone is connected with top forces outside their dimension, they couldn't help but be amazed. At the same time, they also understand that it isn't that their guild leader, Maximus, was stronger than those peak sovereigns. He was simply lucky to stumble with such a friendly force. Nonetheless, they knew luck was nothing without enough strength, so they were still amazed. After boasting more about their guild leader's greatness, they proceeded with their task. First, they needed to report to their guild to get assistance. As Tier 6 individuals, without support, they were as helpless as lambs in this abyss. Fortunately, there were support points set up by top forces to assist these helpless individuals. For them, the Shadowhunter Guild even personally prepared a starter kit that was different from others. Entering one of the guild branches, they confirmed their entry into the abyss. This is the starter pack given by the guild, a puppet said, handing them storage rings. Let's see what the guild has for us. First is the teleportation talisman for emergencies. This is a newly configured standard necessity for these newcomers. In the past, such a teleportation talisman was impossible because of the distance between various outposts. To teleport from one place to another, a whole teleportation array is needed. Now, with the addition of outposts, outpost hubs, and shelter cabins close to each other, a teleportation talisman is possible. The second item, also a standard starter pack, a map. With the spread of micro-surveillance bots in the boundary and central layer, a real-time map is possible. As part of his guild, the Shadowhunter Guild was given the most detailed map possible. For others, it was only a rough map showing the outposts, shelters, and dangerous areas. If it weren't for the insistence and a little treat from the top forces in the abyss, Maximus wouldn't even give them access to this map. Of course, as a profiteer, these maps had a subscription fee. As for the third and last item, it is, of course, Ethereum coins. As a rich guild, it can't let its members come outside empty-handed. Each was given 1 million Ethereum coins, enough for them to spend for a while. What a rich starter pack! They exclaimed happily. Earlier, they heard that others had only gotten a teleportation item, a map, and some protection items worth a few thousand Ethereum coins. Most didn't even have a starter pack and had to pay for them on loan. Thinking of the greatness of their guild, they vowed not to disappoint the guild's expectations. 10 years later. As the years passed, casualties kept coming. Even with the support of top forces, including teleportation talismans and the map, the weak remained weak. The strength of Tier 6 individuals proved insufficient to withstand the intensity of those abyss monsters. However, as time passed, they also grew accustomed to it, reducing the casualties. Furthermore, the abyss seems to be consolidating its strength, resulting in fewer abyss waves than in the past. Maximus and Malgrin have been pondering this issue for a while. After an investigation, bad news came out. According to Malgrin, it should be because of Maximus. The unknown advancement of Maximus, his ultimate physique, was accidentally discovered. With those abyss monarchs' cunningness and fear of death, they should be frantically seeking reinforcement. They should be consolidating their strength to gather energy for the dimensional teleportation array. Fortunately, the energy required for such a massive task is enormous. They estimated that it would take the abyss at least 100 years to gather enough energy. That is, if they only intended to open a small dimensional teleportation array. Coupled with the people of the Ethereum realm harvesting various resources in the abyss like locusts, the efficiency of the abyss gathering energy should be further slowed down. Maximus can only hope it to be as long as possible. Now he was still studying the amalgamation of will. He still didn't have the time to study his system. Fortunately, after a bit of tinkering, he confirmed that it was possible to study the system. To be precise, it's the Myriad World Mall. The Myriad World Mall is just a subsystem of the transdimensional platform system, barely a Tier 11 item. Myriad World Mall, initial 0/100 quintillion. Looking at the system points he needed, it might seem significant. However, because he only needed to master it to proficiency, he only needed 100 quintillion system points. Making his shop incognito is simple and only requires a little manipulation. Maximus only needed to understand the whole program of the Myriad World Mall system. With a bit of tinkering, he was good to go. As for studying his system, the family and power system, it is impossible. The system's creator seems to put various inscriptions on it, making it impossible to study. Unless he forcefully took it apart and studied it on his own, there is nothing he can do. However, even so, once Maximus has enough strength, he will forcibly tear this system apart. As long as he aimed at the top, this would always be a hidden bomb waiting to explode. Even if he lose his system in the process, he wouldn't have any regrets. At that time, he should be able to do everything he wants. The power of the system should be almost obsolete at that point. Even now, his system doesn't function as it was supposed to. The life and potential points he would have gotten for having wives and children were too little to make a difference. In the past, it was his only source of system points. Now, he has a more stable and renewable source of system points. Like the amalgamation of will, abyss source, even high-level energy like the power of law can be converted to system points. In the future, once he has unlimited power of law, it would be another source of his system points. 5 years later. In the cultivation room, a surge of aura swept the outpost. The initially dense aura in the Shadow Hunter outpost was being depleted rapidly.
Broke through?
Maximus immediately noticed the commotion happening. With the scan of his domain, he noticed Liam's wife, Amara, beginning to break through. It's indeed a former Apex sovereign, Maximus muttered in amazement. I, Eternal Voyager, consume the stored energy and put it in cultivation room 31. Eternal Voyager, as ordered, host. Eternal Voyager immediately consumed the magic crystal and crystal merits store and pumped it into cultivation room number 31. The originally depleting mana in the outpost also stabilized. From now on, as long as someone is breaking through within the outpost, don't worry about consuming the stored energy, Maximus ordered. Eternal Voyager, I'll take note, host. Soon, a few months passed and another wave of energy began to sweep within the outpost. It's Elysienne this time. As a new god, Elysienne needed to fully control her god's authority to advance to a high god. Usually, it would take an epoch for one to fully control their god's authority. However, Elysienne had origin to polish her foundation, which was forcibly raised by her authority. Maximus also gave her quintillion of crystal merits as energy. Within only a few decades, all of these resources made it possible for a god to fully control her authority. Of course, the help of Liam making Elysienne fully experience her god's authority made it possible. Otherwise, no matter how solid her foundation or how many crystal merits she had, it would be impossible to fully control her god's authority of love. By now, Elysienne should be the strongest beside him. However, this was still in debate as his wives and children didn't advance yet. Chapter 292 continues advancement 2. A year passed. Suddenly a massive energy wave swept through the outpost. Maximus quickly noticed that disturbance and looked at the cultivation rooms.
Finally, it's their turn.
He felt his wives and children breaking through. After a few decades, they finally advanced to Tier 8. He could finally meet them after all these years. Although he could see them all the time. But as it said, the greatest distance in the world is even if I'm in front of you, you don't know it. Without further ado, Maximus teleported outside the cultivation room, waiting for them. Looking at the surging energy, a smile appeared on his face. So strong. As expected of my family. Spreading his domain, he helped them control the rampant energy, making it easier to absorb. Soon after a few days, the energy wave calmed down. Opening their eyes, they tried to control their rampant energy as they exited the cultivation room. Outside, they saw Maximus smiling at them. Congratulations. A husband. A dad. A grandfather. His wives, children, their wives, and his grandchildren simultaneously broke through. With the same foundation and training manual. It's quite natural that they broke through at the same time.
What about Sky?
Maximus frowned and found Sky still in meditation. It looked like condensing the domain with an ultimate physique will take some time. Knowing what happened, he heaved a sigh of relief. After a bit of reminiscing, he took his family to have a feast. The whole Shadowhunter outpost also joined the celebration, making it very lively. With the addition of hundreds of millions of Tier 6 guild members, the outpost finally had some liveliness. After the celebration, Maximus had a heart-to-heart talk with his wives. Looking at them, the smile on his face couldn't be suppressed. "You've become more handsome, husband," Erica said, looking at his face.
Is this due to the leap of life?
Hazel concluded.
No, it should be because we miss our husband.
Luna joked. However, the others couldn't help but agree with Luna's statement. With their husband in seclusion and theirs, they didn't meet each other for decades. Although, as their strength and lifespan increased, their perception of time accelerated. Their love for each other didn't diminish. Every second, every minute they couldn't see each other was like a parting of 1,000 years. "Ah, don't worry too much, we will be together for eternity, parting for a few years is not much," Maximus comforted. However, in his mind, he didn't believe what he said. His family was his fuel, the driving force of all his actions. If not for them, everything he had done would be meaningless. After all, who wanted to spend time in loneliness? Training? Cultivation? Entertainment? Although these can indeed dilute some emotion, it's not forever. On the contrary, the further you suppress your emotion, the more it will burst through. Of course, there are exceptions to everything. Like Malgren, his emotion is all for battle. As long as he fights, even for eternity, he won't be bored. However, his wives, hearing that they would be together for eternity, couldn't help but smile. Although they couldn't imagine such a long time. They didn't even know if they could achieve that kind of strength. Hearing Maximus confidently say they would be together for eternity made them feel that their hard work and training were worthwhile. "By the way, when would we return to the Ethereum realm?" Isabella asked. The others also looked at him, waiting for his answer. Although they didn't have any issues in the abyss. The weather in the Ethereum realm is still better. Looking at the dark sky all the time made them somewhat gloomy. Furthermore, because of the environment, they needed to fight from time to time to keep their touch. In 5 years, or when Sky breaks through.
So soon?
They thought that they would need to stay here for a few decades to stabilize the guild and their properties. Who knew they would return quickly? The Moonlight Empire is facing some dangers, so we need to go back quickly. Maximus then began to explain the ins and outs of the matter. Initially, they were worried about their family staying in the Moonlight Empire. However, upon hearing that millions of Tier 8 puppets were in the Empire, they quickly heaved a sigh of relief. Millions of Tier 8 puppets in that backward continent were like a nuclear warhead that could wipe out everything. Without the presence of Tier 9 powerhouses, these puppets are invincible. Of course, those rulers of the Empire who reach Tier 8 can't be measured with common sense. However, seeing their husband's nonchalant expression, there should be no problem for a while.
Enough of that, let's get to the main business.
Maximus said knowingly. Ahihi. Soon, the days and months passed and everything returned to normal. After the breakthrough of his wives and children, they went back to their old businesses. Either scouring resources in the abyss, shopping, playing, earning money, doing construction, etc. Maximus thought that this would go on until they returned to the Ethereum realm. However, looking at his son in front of him, it seems that there are still breaks and bumps on the way. "Did you already know it, Dad?" Liam asked calmly. Ahem.
Then why didn't you tell me?
Liam asked, looking at him intently. "Does it make a difference?
Isn't everything all right now?"
"But I still feel stupid and not worthy of any trust." Liam sighed and sat down. After Liam advanced to Tier 8, he noticed something different from his wives. They were more majestic and indifferent than before. He thought it was only because they became stronger. Who knew, after a deeper probing, he came to discover that they were either a god or a reborn goddess. It may be nothing to others. However, the feeling of not being trusted, even by those who were in the same bed as him, hurt him a little. After asking, even his daughter seemed to know her mother's secrets. Knowing he was left behind, Liam felt failure as a husband and father.
Oh well, you're really stupid,
Maximus teased. As for Liam not being worthy of trust, he didn't say anything about it. Liam is probably his most trustworthy son. It's just that he is usually dense when it comes to emotions. Liam, who was hoping for his father's comfort, just became sadder hearing his father's words.
Instead of sulking here, why don't you go and punish your wives?
Maximus said knowingly.
Punish? How could I punish them?
They're much stronger than me, Liam sighed, not hearing the deep meaning behind his words.
A tisk tsk. You're hopeless.
I'm not talking about violence.
How can you hurt your wives?
Maximus said, knocking Liam's head.
Then what punishment should I do?
Talk to them harshly? Liam said, still not getting it.
A sigh.
All right, I can't do anything with that stupid head of yours.
What's wrong with having a wife more powerful than you?
Didn't you gain more, like having a powerful backing? Furthermore, isn't it normal to keep secrets?
Even I have secrets.
The secret is there to protect you or the one having it. Previously, you were too weak to even know the details of who you are with. This doesn't mean that you're untrustworthy, it simply means that you are weak. And now, instead of sulking here, you should train more, Maximus said, kicking Liam outside. Also, remember to add another one, so Maya wouldn't be lonely. Soon after receiving advice from his father, Liam calmed down. However, it seems that Liam was enlightened and understood a bit of his words. As a punishment for keeping secrets, Liam became more confident and lived like an emperor. Choosing rooms, choosing positions, as long as Liam could think of it, Amara and Elysienne would happily comply. But as they said, one should be content when enough is enough. After a few months of indulgence, the two women who were obedient just a while ago turned into angry tigresses. Liam, who was weak in strength, was so helpless that he nearly cried. Fortunately, the two goddesses still gave him rewards from time to time. Maximus also began to relax. Using the accumulated system points, he studied the amalgamation of will once a week. With time passing, the amalgamation of will became like his hand, doing whatever he wanted. Just after reaching perfect level mastery, the amalgamation of will could replenish his power of law in an instant. Although his power of law is still not unlimited like his mana. It was enough that he could fight as heartily as he wanted, without worrying about the lack of energy. This instantly made up his weak points, making him closer to invisibility. As the years passed, his mastery toward the amalgamation of will reached closer and closer to transcendence. The light of excitement in his eyes also became brighter and brighter. He felt that after reaching transcendence mastery, the amalgamation of will would sublimate like never before. A height that was never reached before. Maximus wondered what kind of amazing changes the amalgamation of will would undergo. Chapter 293 Amalgamation of Will, Transcendence. 5 years later, after his family had broken through, Maximus slowly opened his eyes, having finally mastered the amalgamation of will to transcendence. Amalgamation of will, transcendence, max. It seems that my hunch is right. As he got closer and closer to transcendence mastery, he felt something different from the amalgamation of will. Now, after fully mastering it, he immediately felt the difference. First, the originally uncontrollable low-level energy became closer to the origin of chaos. It became like the faith mastered by the high gods, that is closer to the origin of creation. These two supreme laws are the reproductive force of the omniverse. In terms of power, there is not much difference between the two. However, in terms of utility, they are like macro and micro. The origin of creation is a law more focused on an entity or a single unit when it comes to creation. On the other hand, the origin of chaos encompasses the fundamental principle of things. Like the gods, they can easily strengthen their believers using the power of faith, without changing anything fundamental like talent and such. On the other hand, although the amalgamation of will can't indirectly make someone advance, it could slowly improve someone's talent, making them stronger in the long run. Faith mastered by new gods and high gods differ in power. If the faith mastered by the new god is the power of law, then the faith mastered by the high god is the essence of law. Meaning, after Maximus mastered the amalgamation of will, it reached the power of the essence of law. Now, using the power of the amalgamation of will, Maximus can fight those apex sovereigns back-to-back without losing. This is just in terms of energy. Coupled with his domain, Maximus could be said to be invincible. No wonder Maximus heard that those who ruled the whole Cursed continent in the past, despite being only tier 8, could be in the same rank as those apex sovereigns. I don't have to worry about the creator of amalgamation of will anymore. As soon as Maximus mastered the amalgamation of will to Transcendence, he felt some strings being cut off. Maximus felt complete control of the amalgamation of will coming to him. Furthermore, it's not limited to the Cursed continent where people believe in his rule. Amalgamation of will comes from those whom you influence, not like faith limited only to beliefs. So, his guild, those using Ethereum coins, those he influenced provided will to varying degrees. His guild, deeply loyal to him, provided him with about 30 trillion worth of amalgamation of will. Stronger power provides more energy, so getting about 30 trillion worth of energy with them is no surprise. What's surprising is that those using Ethereum coins, despite providing minimal will, contributed at least 10 trillion worth of amalgamation of will. This is still despite Ethereum coins not being widely accepted in the abyss. During these decades, the spread of Ethereum coins continued to slow down. The use of crystal merits was deeply rooted, and many barely exchanged them except when they needed something. They would rather hoard crystal merits than those somewhat worthless Ethereum coins. The use of Ethereum coins began to speed up with the arrival of those tier 6 individuals. After all, they had no concept of crystal merits. Seeing that all the shops and establishments in the abyss used Ethereum coins, they were not so against it. Furthermore, Maximus also set up many loaning packs for these newcomers, further spreading the use of Ethereum coins. Maximus also earned a little bit of amalgamation of will to those who benefited from him. Especially in the abyss, the various outposts, hubs, and mini-cabins, which were all somehow connected to him, benefited many. Although what he got was not even a trillion worth of amalgamation of will, Maximus was already satisfied. All in all, the amalgamation of will he earned every day directly shot up from 4 to 5 trillion to almost 50 trillion. Mastering the amalgamation of will through Transcendence was probably the biggest benefit Maximus got. He was no longer limited to the Cursed continent. All the places, people, and things that had his influence could be a magnet attracting amalgamation of will. After all, Maximus couldn't conquer everything and make it his territory. Sometimes in the future, even if he reached invincibility in the Ethereum realm, he couldn't have all those beings surrender to him. Even Malgrin, who went berserk countless epochs ago and nearly wiped out the creatures of the Ethereum realm, didn't become a ruler or something. Sure, the powerhouses there were scared of him, but when it came to interests, they would still fight regardless of life and death. Thinking of the benefits of the amalgamation of will, Maximus decided not to restrict the growth of his guild. Amalgamation of will is not only his source of system points, it's also directly related to his combat power. Just the ability to instantly recover his power of law was already worth it. More importantly, the amalgamation of will is on par with the essence of law, giving him a sharper edge. In the past, Maximus limited the growth of the guild after it reached tens of billions because he couldn't accept the cost. Although they also provided their worth, Maximus didn't have many things to do. Like the sea hunting ship, it only needed hundreds of millions of individuals to operate at full efficiency. Any more, and it will be an overflow of manpower. The guild only had dozens of sea hunting ships, so billions of members were too much. For construction, besides the beginning phase, there is not much work afterward. It's all maintenance and additional modification, which is not too much work. As for fighting, there was not too much fight. In the abyss, Eternal Voyager checks for any danger before landing to collect resources. There are also tier 8 puppets who can take on any enemy. In the Ethereum realm, it's also very peaceful and doesn't require much fighting. The sea beast wave in the Cursed continent already stopped decades ago. So the guild didn't need to send support any longer. Furthermore, with the millions of tier 8 puppets, what fighter would he still need? For high-tier fights, like guild wars or apex sovereigns coming to him, Maximus's power was enough. Even if it's not enough, there is a dimensional weapon always ready for backup. All in all, the guild is pretty much useless except for management and earning money. However, now after fully mastering the amalgamation of will, the belief produced by a loyal guild member is much needed. However, Maximus still planned to lower the corresponding benefits to lower the expenses. With the popularity of his guild, there should be no problem with this. However, Sky still hasn't finished the breakthrough? Maximus frowned. Although he knew how difficult it was to condense a domain with an ultimate physique, Maximus was still worried. In his domains, he saw Sky sometimes frowning in difficulty. Moreover, based on her fluctuation of aura, there is not much progress.
I can only help you,
Maximus muttered.
Time is getting tighter and tighter.
Maximus needed to return to the Ethereum realm quickly, or else his empire would be gone.
I can only hope the amalgamation of will can help.
The dense amalgamation of weird energy spread in his domain converged and gathered around Sky. These dense amalgamations of energy, worth hundreds of trillions of system points, worked like a miracle as pulses of waves suddenly emerged from Sky.
Boom. Boom. Boom.
Sky's frown suddenly relaxed as she felt her physique beginning to merge her domain and soul. She felt her physique suddenly become like a furious dragon, willing to devour anything. Sky's way is the way of the body, merging her soul and domain into her body. Initially, her physique was like an anorexic patient, unwilling to consume anything. However, with the addition of the amalgamation of will, her physique became like a hungry ghost frantically merging her soul and domain on its own. Soon, a few months passed. Sky slowly opened her eyes as she adapted to her newly obtained strength. I didn't think it was possible in this life, Sky said in surprise. In all her previous lifetimes, although she could still advance to Tier 8, it was not perfect. Unwilling to be mediocre, she fought until she died, waiting for another try. To have the strongest foundation of her dream. She wanted to merge her physique with her soul and domain. However, because of her frequent reincarnation, her soul was quite filthy. Even her domain, which she condensed after all her lifetime experiences, was quite tasteless, that her physique wouldn't even look at it. Fortunately, it seems that her life this time turned around. First, she met Maximus, which gave color to her life and somehow purified her soul, giving her a purpose. Then, with the ultimate cultivation manual, Origin, the domain she condensed was finally somewhat bearable. Still, because her physique had long been sick, it couldn't adapt to change, making her breakthrough quite difficult.
Just what happened?
Chapter 294 Preparation to Return. Just as Sky began to question what had suddenly happened, she saw Maximus looking at her with a smile. Congratulations on your advancement.
Maximus.
Sky jumped in surprise.
How's your strength? I'm much stronger now.
Sky waved her fist, eager to fight. Ahaha, you're indeed stronger. Maximus felt the teeming energy inside Sky and was a little shocked. Compared to his ever-expanding domain and his invulnerable soul and body, the energy that Sky possessed was immortal. According to the simulation of his domain, Sky's body and soul, although not invulnerable, were immortal. No matter the damage or cause, they would always regenerate in their perfect form. Her attacks, whether physical or imbued with energy, were also immortal and could never be cured or repaired. It was like an attack at the level of causality. Of course, this was not invincibility. Sky only possesses the power of law, which is the lowest level of law. Higher levels of energy, like the essence of law and the origin of law, can easily invalidate these unique features. However, at the same tier, no one could match Sky. No matter how talented they were, unless they possessed a higher form of energy, they would be no match. It might look quite tasteless as Sky was already invincible at the same tier. However, these kinds of features are quite suited for Sky as she likes all kinds of crazy training. Like Maximus, Sky's tasteless advancement feature was the cause of their low-level physique. Although it's at the ultimate level, it has limited effects at the high tier.
How long have I been in seclusion?
It's been long enough, Maximus said, gently hugging her.
Then do you miss me?
Sky asked, blinking her eyes. I miss you every day, Maximus said, kissing her neck.
You?
Sky blushed in embarrassment.
What's wrong? Don't you miss me?
Gah, I miss you too, Sky said, looking into his eyes.
Then. Gah.
Soon, a few months passed and everything settled down. Maximus also got ready as they were about to return to the Ethereum realm. He called all his family members, including his wives, children, in-laws, and grandchildren. They all stopped what they were doing and attended the family discussion. Have you already prepared everything you need? We will return to the Ethereum realm in a few years, Maximus started.
Dad, can I stay here?
Lux suddenly asked. Maximus didn't answer and just looked at him. Dad, doing business in the Ethereum realm is a bit lackluster. Furthermore, I'm doing very well with my business now, Lux explained. Indeed, doing business in the Ethereum realm was like playing house. There is no technical content at all. Success relied on either having a wide range of connections or super strength. The Ethereum realm, especially the arcane continent, was already divided among various forces. No matter how good or successful one was, there wasn't much to gain. Lux had had enough of that place. Even with his dimensional physique and knowledge. If it weren't for the help of his father, he wouldn't have had a chance in that realm. However, in the abyss, everything was in chaos and every place presented an opportunity. With the right manipulation, he could earn big and achieve his ambitions. Even without his father's help, Lux was confident he could make it big in this chaotic environment. Then you can stay here, Maximus finally nodded at Lux's insistence. Lux really had nothing to do in the Ethereum realm. It was better to stay here and train further. What about the others? Who else wants to stay here? Maximus asked, seeing the others looking at him, unsure of what to say. Dad, I want to stay here with Ella, Max said nervously. Reason? Maximus inquired. The Ethereum realm is too peaceful and lacks challenges, Max said straightforwardly. Approved, Maximus didn't hesitate and quickly approved. And me? Lila stood up, seeing that her brother had succeeded in persuading their father. Lila? The others looked in shock at Lila. Why? It's too dangerous here, Maximus said, not wanting Lila to stay. His daughter was different from his sons. They were like his padded jacket, he didn't want them to get hurt. It's much more fun here, Lila pouted, observing her father's strong reaction. So? Maximus still didn't agree. Me too, Dad. I want to stay here. Seeing that Lila had not achieved a positive result, Cyrus spoke up. Why? Maximus sighed in frustration. Syra was usually silent, but when she wanted something she was quite stubborn. Why did his daughters want to leave him one by one? His heart couldn't take it. I want to train myself, Syra said straightforwardly. The Ethereum realm is really too peaceful like heaven. It's full of rules and regulations that protect everyone. It's only a good place for learning, not for development. Is there anyone else? Maximus neither agreed nor denied but asked the others. I want to be with my sister, Lydia said in a small voice. Lila and Lydia had long been inseparable, like twins. So it wasn't surprising that even the gentle and peace-seeking Lydia wanted to stay in this dark place. Me too, Dad, my wives need to train for a while, Liam, the wife-slave, said helplessly. Ew. Any more? I want to stay too, Dad, so I can watch over my sisters, Lily said after a bit of thinking. As a big sister, although Lily didn't want to stay in this dark place, she couldn't just let her sisters be alone. So, Max, Ella, Lila, Syra, Lydia, Liam, Amara, Elysian, and Lila. Us too, grandfather. Martin and I want to stay. Sylvan hurriedly said. Sylvan and Martin possessed a battle-type physique and needed to constantly fight to unleash their potential. Furthermore, they were influenced by their uncle Max and were quite warlike. So, Sylvan and Martin too, Maximus nodded. Maximus had already accepted the fact that his children didn't want to be with him. Looking at their faces as if begging to let them stay, Maximus sighed. All right, you can stay. Yay. Thank you, Dad. You're the best. You're the most handsome father ever, Dad. But... Maximus suddenly said, making them nervous. You must make your safety your first priority. I don't want to hear any news of you getting hurt. Otherwise... Maximus didn't continue, but they understood. They would either be forcefully dragged by their father back home, or their father would take revenge and vent his anger on their enemies who hurt them. Either way, they understood what their father said was all for their own good. Although he was a little controlling at times, they could feel that they were loved and being cared for. Don't worry, Dad, we will take care of ourselves, Lily said, standing up to hug him for reassurance. That's right, don't worry about us. Lila, Lydia, and Syra joined their sister and comforted their father. Maximus hugged back, a little comforted. It was still his daughters who knew how to take care of his old father's feelings. As for the boys, they already had their wives and no longer cared for the old him. After settling who was staying and who was returning, Maximus began to assign them tasks. Liam would be in charge of all the things that needed to be managed, whether it was in the guild, the stronghold, business, etc. Lux would also help him but would mainly take care of money. Related matters. Max's only task was to protect. Whenever his siblings, nephews, and others were being bullied, he only needed to respond. As for the girls, they were given free rein. Maximus only requested that they be safe and happy. After all, Maximus could only pamper his daughters, not hurt them. As for his in-laws and grandchildren, Maximus also didn't assign them anything and just advised them to be safe. His in-laws, Amara and Elysienne, were already as strong as an apex sovereign, so he didn't need to worry. Ella also had her grandmother as her backing. Whoever hurt the granddaughter of one of the top forces in the world would surely suffer without him doing anything. As for his grandchildren, with their uncles and aunts watching over them, they should be safe. After settling everything in his family, Maximus went to Malgrin. In the Battle Axe bar, Maximus booked the entire bar, hoping to talk to Malgrin.
What took you, a busy man, here?
Malgrin asked with a smile. Besides their first meeting, Maximus never went to him if there was nothing important.
I'm about to return to the Ethereum realm, Maximus said straightforwardly.
Oh. Malgrin got interested and took out a precious Tier 10 wine that he was reluctant to drink. As for Tier 11? Even if he could afford that, he wouldn't be able to drink it. Just the Tier 10 wine was already so strong that it could punch him in the face. What's more for a Tier 11 wine? Still, thinking of that taste, he couldn't help but drool. I remember that you are from the Cursed Continent. Is it about the play that little nerd said? Chapter 295 Valoros, the Battle Sage.
A little nerd?
Maximus became curious upon hearing the name Malgrin had mentioned. Although he already knew that there was a hidden powerhouse in the Cursed Continent, he didn't know who. All the histories he read were, after all, not entirely thorough and quite varied. Ahahaha, it's Valoros, the brain of the former Nexus continent, Malgrin laughed as he reminisced. Valoros was really a nerd in Malgrin's opinion. Besides studying new knowledge and experimenting, Valoros didn't fight much. If the Nexus was not a battle continent, maybe Valoros wouldn't even bother to fight.
So it is.
Maximus nodded in understanding. It seems that his guess was right. The only one in the history of the Nexus continent capable of creating the amalgamation of will is Valoros, the battle sage.
A play?
What are you talking about?
It's the one you are fighting for, the era of imperial domination.
Malgrin said, looking at the amalgamation of will that was on Maximus. Through the years Malgrin had spent in the abyss, he had not been so outdated. Listening to those strongholds had let him know all the major trends. It's because it's been a while since he last returned to civilization that he was surprised at the change Maximus caused. Malgrin had heard about the amalgamation of will a long time ago. He even met with some of the holy emperors who ruled over the Cursed Continent at some time. Meeting them, Malgrin can only say that Valoros picked some good experimental subjects. Did you mean Sage Valoros did this because of a conspiracy? It's not that deep, it should just be a little experiment, Malgrin said, sharing his guess. Malgrin knew Valoros well. The amalgamation of will, the main subject of his experiment, should be to create the strongest being capable of defeating him. This little brat had been obsessed with defeating him since they came to know each other. As the strongest being in the Ethereum realm, Valoros took it as a challenge to create something stronger and beat him. Unfortunately for him, the amalgamation of will is not kind of big deal. At the highest, it only reached the same power as the essence of law. Although it had some capabilities as the origin of law, its chaotic energy is nigh impossible to solve. This caused those who mastered it to fall into a bottleneck, never advancing to Tier 9. Malgrin can only hope Maximus can make the impossible and reach the apex. He wanted to see if Valoros could finally create something that could defeat him.
Experiment?
Hearing Malgrin's guess, Maximus's lips twitched. An energy comparable to the essence of law was a mere experiment? It's like someone invented an energy comparable to electricity that could revolutionize the world. Maybe if it were not for the limit of the Ethereum realm, Valoros could even create an energy comparable to the origin of law. Did Sage Valoros have a unique physique or something? Maximus asked.
No, hahaha, that's the best part.
That little nerd's physique is only a mortal one. I heard that his physique is something useless, like he didn't need to sleep or something.
Mortal physique?
Maximus muttered in shock. What's the concept of having a mortal physique and becoming one of the strongest individuals in history? Basically, only the gods, who relied on absorbing God's authority, can advance to Tier 9 even with a mortal physique. In history, only a few advanced to Tier 9 with a mortal physique because of some treasure. However, without a doubt, they were the weakest apex sovereigns ever. That's right, all the genius and strength of Valoros come from his own, Malgrin said in admiration. Through all his subordinates, Valoros is the one he admired the most. With his otherworldly comprehension, Valoros achieved something that he wouldn't even dare to imagine. Sometimes he even wondered if Valoros was from another dimension in disguise to conduct experiments in the Ethereum realm. It's indeed admirable. Maximus muttered sincerely. For an individual who achieved this greatness relying just on his own, Maximus was full of respect. After all, despite his current achievements, it all depends on his system. Still, Maximus thinks there is something weird with Valoros. If Valoros possessed a powerful physique or some special treasure, Maximus wouldn't be shocked by Valoros' achievement. However, possessing raw comprehension, regardless of physique or any treasure, Maximus thought it was impossible. There should be a reason for Valoros' unreasonable comprehension. Shaking his head, he thought back on the topic. If Valoros was only experimenting, he shouldn't intervene much in the era of imperial domination. Thinking of this, he sighed in relief. This had always been the variable he had been worried about. Now that it was out of the equation, he was more confident in his follow-up actions. By the way, I'm here to talk about the follow-up plan here in the Abyss, Maximus said, finally remembering what he came for. Since Maximus still didn't want to expose his coordinates, they couldn't receive help from other dimensions. With the arrival of the enemies from the Abyss, they were in danger. According to the plan, they would delay the accumulation of energy of the Abyss for the activation of dimensional teleportation. As for specifics, Malgrin didn't tell him but said that he would tell after he returned to the Ethereum realm. Bam! Since you're from the former Nexus continent, then everything is easy. To stir up the Abyss, I need a backup. The powerhouse in the past? Yes, having them here would make things easier. Malgrin sighed in reminiscence. How great it would be to have his former friends here and fight with him. They would be back to the old times, stirring things up. I know what to do, Maximus reassured. Malgrin should mean those apex sovereigns who sacrificed themselves to buy the Ethereum realm time from the immediate invasion of the Abyss. Malgrin should be aware of the power of the amalgamation of will. To revive those heroes immediately, he just needed to stimulate their dormant battle while using the amalgamation of will. Malgrin didn't think of this in the past, because there was no need. His strength is enough to stir up chaos in the Abyss. However, now that they were short in time, Malgrin needed some backup. Of course, maybe, Malgrin was just bored and wanted some playmates. Then, I will leave everything to you, Malgrin said and handed over all the crystal merits in his possession. Despite his extravagance, in the Myriad World Mall, Malgrin still had a few sextillion crystal merits. To have his former comrades back to their peak, this should be enough. Unlike Maximus, who needed almost a sextillion crystal merits to advance to Tier 8. His comrades were only a normal powerhouse. A few hundred quintillion crystal merits should be enough for them to regain a bit of their combat power. After they arrive in the Abyss, regaining their peak power should be easy. Leave it to me. After settling things with Malgrin, Maximus went to his guild and called Silas and Andrew. You called, guild leader? Andrew asked. Silas, on the other hand, just nodded to him. I'm returning to the Ethereum realm. I'll leave everything to you here, Maximus said. He hoped they would help their son, Liam, manage the guild here. After all, his son is a bit green and may not be able to handle all the work. So soon? Andrew was a little shocked. He thought Maximus would stay here for a while longer. However, it seems that his guild leader had something important to do. It's the Empire. The war there was already beginning to be intense, Maximus explained. Is that so? Andrew nodded in understanding. For him, the Moonlight Empire is already part of the guild. Hearing that it was in danger, it was only appropriate for the guild leader to go back. Do you have any questions? No, Andrew answered. Maximus has always been a hands-on keeper, so Andrew was already used to it. As for Silas, he just shook his head. His routine had long been established. Whether Maximus was here or not, it would not change. That's good. A few years later. In the Ethereum Sanctuary, Dimensional Teleportation Array. Maximus was with his family as they prepared to return to the Ethereum realm. Around them were also individuals who had advanced to Tier 8 and wanted to go back to their homes. They didn't want to stay here any longer. Although the profits in the abyss are rich, it's not bearable for many. Furthermore, after advancing, they needed a quiet place for seclusion to master the power of law.
Have you got everything?
Maximus asked if they had forgotten something.
No, we have everything.
They didn't have much baggage except for some supplies, so packing was quite easy. As for missing those who stayed here, they already said goodbye. According to Maximus, they would return here shortly after. Maximus just needed to settle everything in the Ethereum realm for a while and they would return. In another place, Rakasha, who was quietly meditating, noticed Maximus in the dimensional teleportation array.
Already returning?
Rakasha muttered in interest. Rakasha thought Maximus would settle here and accumulate for a while. Who knew he was so eager to return? He wondered what chaos Maximus would cause in the Ethereum realm. Having a connection with a powerful dimension, the Ethereum realm would surely undergo massive changes. A tisk, TSK, how exciting.